911. What's your emergency?
I can't move. Back in my days, there used to be a remote med school near my place. Due to heavy and expensive urbanization, state compromised the med school in a rural area. I remember the students being heavily underexposed to real world, yet they were very curious and hardworking. I used to have a friend studying in the same med school who shared with me an incident I would like to write here about. In an emergency, a senior resident student, let's call him Mark, was assigned to incinerate a body of a patient. First of all, why would hospital authority want to burn a body? Mark was curious. He got his friend Jason with him and made a plan to find out what's wrong with the body. It was warm, silent evening. Lectures were done, dissection hall was empty, the students filled in the subject, ready for what they called a fun medical dissection. The body appeared to be a middle-aged man. No injuries, no scars, nothing suspicious on the surface, though the legs were thin, as if they were nearly unusable. The person looked like he had malnutrition, but that could not be the possible reason for incinerating. There might be something else. They opened the thoracic cavity, and all the organs were surprisingly healthy. No tumor, no trauma, no parasites, no necrotic tissue, not even the signs of any viral or bacterial infections. All they could find was some spongy tissue in the brain. That's it. Laughing and messing around, the students wrapped up the dissection. Everything seemed normal until the next morning. Jason started feeling a faint metallic taste after lunch. He ignored it, then followed the drowsiness. But it was nothing new for med student anyways, so he ignored it as well. In the evening it began. He started scratching his arm vigorously, as if something was crawling beneath the skin. The next day, Mark also felt something similar. His hands started shaking like he was an 80-year-old. He wasn't able to focus on his studies and started hallucinating as well. So far, it might sound like a paranormal horror story, but sometimes real science gets far more terrifying than any ghost story. Few days passed by. It was all ignored till now, until Mark started laughing. Not just little laugh, it was loud, violent, endless. His face turned red, tears streamed down, but he couldn't stop. No one could stop him. On the other hand, Jason was unable to sleep. He couldn't sleep at all. Clocks ticked from 12 to 8 a.m. and he would still be trying to sleep. He developed severe insomnia. Days and weeks passed by, and he still couldn't sleep. It was no more normal life. Due to sleep deficiency, he went completely insane. Mark couldn't even move his muscles. He got wheelchaired. Soon, he lost his ability to speak. Few days more and it was all over. When the doctors tried studying Mark and Jason's body, they found everything normal. Everything. Except some necrotic tissue in the brain, which looked like a sponge. In the early 1900s, deep in the jungles of Papua New Guinea, a strange sickness began to haunt a tribe. It was passed down from generation to generation, and no one quite knew why. Tribe members initially believed it was a curse, a punishment from the gods. Some thought it was a prize of angering spirits. But later, we found that this tribe had a weird ritual. When a family member died, they honored them, not with a burial, but by cooking and consuming their flesh. And this cannibalism was the actual root of all those anomalies. Many years after consuming that flesh, they used to develop unsteady stance and had difficulty while walking normally, which marked the onset of this horrifying disease. After a few months of the onset, the members used to laugh like a maniac, continuously throughout the day, without a pause. The villagers watched helplessly as their loved ones descended into the madness. They laughed and laughed until they couldn't walk, until they couldn't speak, until they died. They didn't know it back then, but what they were witnessing was one of the most chilling diseases ever recorded in the medical history, the Kuru disease. When the doctors opened up the brain, they were stunned. A sponge. That's what it looked like. Countless holes, as if something had eaten away the tissue. But this wasn't the first time humanity has seen such anomalies in the brain. Somewhere across the globe, far from the jungles of Papua New Guinea, a strange disorder haunted a European family. One by one, their members lost the ability to sleep. Their eyes would burn with fatigue, muscles would ache, And yet, no matter how exhausted they were, sleep never came. And unfortunately, they would die a few months later. It was called fatal familial insomnia, a disease so rare, only a handful of families in the world carry its curse. There's a popular book, The Family That Couldn't Sleep, written by D.T. Max, that discusses the same topic. Similar to Kuru disease, these two take years for onset, and eventually genes were passed to next generation before dying. After studying, we found that it was all due to an infectious agent. Not a virus, not a bacteria, not a parasite, but a protein. That's it, a protein. Imagine a killer smaller than any virus known to man. It slips past every immune defense, breaks through every barrier. It can be killed by boiling, it can't be destroyed by disinfectants or even highly efficient sterilizing agents. This isn't even a living creature. It's just a protein called prion. And the most terrifying part, one malformed prion is enough to start a chain reaction in your brain. And there's no cure available. The death is absolutely inevitable. This mutated prion protein, it doesn't need to be injected. It can enter through your mouth, your nose, an infected syringe, even a small cut. Once inside, it doesn't attack right away. First, it hides, hijacking your immune cells, silently multiplying inside the macrophages. And when it's multiplied enough, millions of them breach your brain's last line of defense, the blood-brain barrier. But here's what makes it even more terrifying. This process can take decades. You feel nothing until it's far too late. Coming back to Mark and Jason, later, it was revealed that the subject was a Kuru tribe member, and the body was already infected with prions. And that was the reason medical authorities wanted it to be incinerated. But the horror didn't end there. During the autopsy, Mark accidentally injured himself while operating on the skull. Jason, unaware of the risk, later used the same instruments, and thus both men eventually found themselves in the same nightmare. Even a microscopic nick during the autopsy can transmit prions, because once inside, the human body has no defense. Normally, prion diseases take years, sometimes even decades, to show the symptoms. But in the case of Mark and Jason, the onset came terrifyingly fast. The only possible explanation might be the overwhelming concentration of the prions, though we are not very sure about that. And so, finally, the remains were burned. But what no one realized was that the prions can survive fire.